What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of DaGamer's The Greatest Opinion. And today I'm here to talk to you guys about My Heroes 1 Justice 2. So, we currently know that My Heroes 1 Justice 2 is in development. I spoke about this game pretty briefly in one of my weekly roundups. But for those who didn't watch the episode, essentially I said that 1's Justice 1, it was cool. I didn't personally play it. I did watch quite a few gameplay videos about it just to kind of get a feel for how it played and how it handled. Kind of kept up with the development as it was being led up to the release and checked out the reviews and yada 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 yada. And it was cool. Like, I feel like it wasn't a bad idea to make an arena style fighter for the My Hero Academia franchise. I don't think that was a bad idea. And I think some of the things that they at least attempted to do gameplay wise made sense to me. That being said, here it is that we're at the sequel, right? And I think that it is time for the developers to really take a look at some of the gameplay elements that they have and refine them and really bring them to life in a way that makes this game stand out and makes even more fans want to dive into this fighter. Now, for me, with everything that I've seen gameplay wise, it's pretty fair to say that the developers are very, very heavily influenced by CyberConnect's 2 Ultimate Ninja Storm series. And that's not a bad thing. The Ultimate Ninja Storm series was a very good series. Granted, not every entry was the best. You can make your complaints about the roster or certain gameplay mechanics, but overall, it was a very loving and detailed nod to the Naruto franchise. And it's clear that these developers are finding inspiration, you could say, in that franchise for the 1's Justice series, which again is not a bad thing. However, I feel like in order for them to really bring this franchise to life, they really need to go back to what CyberConnect 2 was doing with the Ultimate Ninja games back on like the PS2 era. So the thing that made the Ultimate Ninja games stand out, at least to me, was the overemphasis of certain gameplay elements. Right, so for example, the first thing that comes to mind is the ultimate moves, right? The ultimate moves from game to game in the Ultimate Ninja series just got better and better and better. Each one was more detailed than the last. Each one was more deadly than the last, right? There's these like super long scripted attacks that just look like they should have just killed the opponent immediately, right? And you're just like, I don't know how this person could possibly be standing after this. And what I loved about those moves was that they made it to the point where it's like, even if this character didn't do this within the series, you could see how they could have the potential to do something on that scale. However, when it came to 1's Justice specials, granted, they did take a few liberties here and there, right? There are a couple techniques here and there that you're just like, okay, I can see that they tried something different with this. This is not just a recreation of what they did in the show. I don't think that they went far enough. And I think that's something that they will need to work on if they really want to catch the eye of like anime gamers and really dive into those hardcore My Hero fans, right? So yes, right, it's cool that Bakugo can do all these things with his hands and create these explosions, but can you make a special where he creates an explosion that looks like it can level a city, right? It might seem ridiculous. You might be like, that seems like a stretch for this character, but it's also something where it's like, it's so engaging and so visually appealing that you're just like, maybe. And even if not, this looks really cool, you know? And like, I think they try things like that, but not necessarily with the special attacks, right? So you have these destructible environments, right? Where you can like shatter parts of buildings and fight on walls, and none of that is present within the My Hero franchise, but you're able to do it within the confines of the game. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think they're wrong to take some liberties, to take some creative liberties with the game and do some things that still kind of fit that world, even if it's a bit of a reach within that world, if that makes sense. So I think, again, they need to be doing certain things to kind of spruce up these super attacks, really make them feel powerful, really make them feel impactful, make them feel like I just bodied my opponent whenever I land a special. You know, a lot of the specials in that game were hit and miss. And, you know, I want to see these games take on a more cinematic quality, especially if the story mode is going to be kind of similar to the first one, which was, in all honesty, trash. Since I'm on the topic of ultimate techniques, even though it seems pretty apparent by a few clues here and there in the trailer, it's pretty safe to say that we'll be getting team-based ultimates within this sequel, which is a great thing, right? I mean, what player doesn't like a really satisfying tag team, triple tag team, a whole squad style ultimate technique to really embarrass and shame and finish off your opponent, right? It's beautiful. It's eye candy. You get to see these things that you might not have been able to see in the show. It's great. And I think them putting this in the game is a great idea. However, if it's going to follow in the same vein as how they handled the ultimates in the first game, what's going to happen is we're going to have these really cool ideas that kind of get executed very awkwardly or almost very subpar in some instances, and it's not going to give us the oomph factor that we really want from this game, right? You really want to see like heroes and villains clashing on a level that you're just like, man, like it is crazy what they were able to do with Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki and their team special. Like, you want to see something that just really shows off the creative abilities of the developer and what they can do with this franchise. But I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of gameplay. I also think they need to implement a tag team feature. Forget the assist attacks, all right? Forget the whole assist where it's like you can only bring them in for an assist super or an assist technique. No, add in tag team features. Give them 3 separate health bars so you can choose between 3 different heroes and fight it out over a prolonged match. Like, it's a fighting game. And not only that, it's an anime fighting game. Who doesn't want to be able to use multiple characters at once? You know, it opens a window of all types of new combo possibilities. Like, what can I do if I'm juggling a character and I tag in with this character? You know, it's just a good idea. You know, yes, you can use assists to juggle, you know, in the first game and do all these really cool, crazy things. But you know what's even cooler than that is being able to tag in and out with a different character. Just put it in the game. It'll be fine. The last 2 things that I think should be included, and I'll kind of include them as one cumulative idea. I really feel like they should get the author of My Hero involved, right? My Hero isn't a simpler series like, say, Dragon Ball, where it's like, here's the villain, the good guys go fight the villain, they beat the villain in the end. My Hero is a lot more complicated and has a lot more nuances to it than just fight this guy, beat him up, the end. So when it comes to like the villain side of things, because the story is set up in a way where the villains kind of get fleshed out in a good way over the course of an arc, I think it would be better to have the author involved to maybe introduce an original villain for the game. I mean, yeah, it's cool to be able to fight All For One and, you know, all these other villain, like League of Villain characters, but they're not really at their peak right now, right? Except for All For One. Like, he's the only one that was really presented as like a threat, as like legitimate danger within the series. Everyone else, like, you can tell they're gonna become threats down the road, but most of the villains in the League of Villains at this point in the story are kind of just like, yeah, he's dangerous, I guess. You know, so I think sometimes having having a direction to focus an original story into with a original villain that can get fleshed out within the story of the game is a good thing. I mean, look at One Piece. Most of One Piece latest games, the developer has got in touch with Oda, and Oda has designed the villain and given them like a devil fruit need be, and really made the character the focus of the game. Even though One Piece has a great history of amazing villains to choose from, who tend to also make it in the game, you know, we still get that original character that makes this feel like a One Piece gaming experience. And I think My Hero could benefit from that. I think even though it's a fighting game, right, it's not necessarily story driven, I think if they're not going to be able to recreate the story on a high level, right, that kind of makes it stand out, the very least you can do is at least try to present an interesting narrative, right? Don't do Fighter Z's story, but do an interesting narrative that makes me want to invest into the game story mode and really see how it plays out for better or worse, as well as including a villain that is inspired by the author, right? So people love to hear about original works inspired by the author, and you guys get to take creative liberties as developers, right? You get to do your own thing with that villain and really make them stand out as a villain's character. But those are just my thoughts. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think like One's Justice 2 is going to be great as is? Do you think they're going to do enough to really make that game stand out from the last game? Let me know what you think.